You're listening to Get to Know World of Warships, a podcast created by Boggzy and Synpax.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to a very, very special edition of Get to Know World of Warships. My name is Boggzy, and I'm joined, of course, by Borla. Hello, Borla.
Hey, Boggzy. I'm impressed that this one's special. You never say that.
You know why this one's special?
Why is this one special, Boggzy?
Because there's no guest. It's just us.
Oh.
You know, before Synpax left, he used to say to me every once in a while when we were bandying about what we were going to discuss in the inter-show banter or in the pre-show banter, he would sometimes just say, you know what, screw it. It's our podcast. We can do whatever the hell we want. And I always loved that. So today we're going to do whatever the hell we want. And we're going to do a state of the game today. A little state of World of Warships. And we're going to talk about whatever the hell we want, because we're both adults, or at least you are, and
the trick is wherever you were at 13 as a male, that's just who you are the rest of your life. So eventually, sometime between your age and my age, you figure out you're not really going to grow up. This is adulthood. This is what it is.
At 13 is 8th grade, right? It's like, that's still middle school.
Yeah.
I was playing Magic cards in the cafeteria during lunchtime and recess. In middle school. I don't know if you ever played Magic cards back in the day, but or even today.
Not. When I was one of those 13-year-olds I had chest hair at 13.
Oh my god! Are you kidding me?
I was starting to shave.
I don't think I got chest hair until I was maybe 21 or 22. I was late blooming.
People are already afraid.
If you guys haven't bailed out yet, stick around. This is going to be great. So you sent me a video this morning that absolutely melted my heart. And why don't you tell everybody what it was?
Yeah, I actually found it. It was on the front page of Reddit this morning. There was a little boy who I think was 6. And maybe he was a little older than that, but he went and he was at a meet and greet at Hulk Hogan's store or someplace where Hulk Hogan was. And he did the most impressive Hulk Hogan impression, including like calling him out to his face and ripping his shirt open. It was hilarious. I mean, this kid was never even alive when Hogan was actually performing and at his peak, and I saw that and I thought of you because of your brother on your stream and all that. So I just thought you'd get a kick out of that.
I did. For those of you who don't know what Borla is talking about, on my Twitch stream, which you should all absolutely go see at https://www.twitch.tv/BoggzyTime. Hell yeah, brother. When I started my Twitch stream, I needed to kind of come up with some fun gimmicks for when someone followed or subscribed or tipped or what have you. And I don't know why, but I decided to go with the a GIF and the soundbite of Hulk Hogan from Rocky 3. I think it's the right movie, of where he goes, "Thunderlips is here in the flesh, baby." I thought it was the silliest thing as an actor. And if you don't know, did you know I was an actor?
Actually, somebody in game told me that the other day. They ran into me and they asked if I was the Borla from the podcast, and I said I was. And they're like, "Did you know Boggzy was an actor?"
Are you the Borla?
Yeah. No, that was good.
Well, so there was something funny about that clip from Rocky 3 that appealed to me, and I think it appealed to me because it's really obvious that line that Hogan delivered when he's introducing himself as Thunderlips in the movie, it's really obvious that it was ADR'd, that they recorded it afterwards, and he basically lip-synced to his own performance. And it was just something about the way he's a really, really dynamic performer, and that was such a monotone delivery, in the flesh, baby! It's just... It struck me as very un-Hogan-like, and something about that I really liked. So the whole Hulk Hogan and wrestling, 80s wrestling theme stuck with me, and I made a lot of my gimmicks for the stream, wrestling-based. And yeah, this little kid, he mentioned specifically, if you want to see it...
Put it below the pod. Yeah, just put a link to it.
I'll put the link up to it. But you can basically probably right now just Google Hulk Hogan kid or whatever, Hulk Hogan kid impression, and it'll pop up. It's this little 6-year-old kid. You were right. He's 6 years old, and he cuts a promo, to use a wrestling term. He cuts a promo on Hogan at, I think it's I think it's Hogan's Florida.
His beach store, yeah.
Yeah, he owns like a merch store because wrestlers, at least way back in the day, they used to make a lot of their money off of selling merch, like actually at the shows, like sell T-shirts and headbands or whatever. And this kid, he's 6 years old. He even delivers the line, "The last time I saw you, brother, I was only 3, but now I'm 6. And what you gonna do, brother, when these 24-inch pythons run wild on you, Hulk Hogan?" And it's just like, what? This kid.
No, the kid is amazing.
It's just astounding. So go. I think you guys will get a kick out of it. So go check it out. And then after that, you sent me a video of Waylon, of you training Waylon, your child, your giant 4-legged hairy child.
Yeah, so he is in obedience classes right now, and we had a bull mastiff before, and we put him through a couple levels of obedience classes with a local trainer that does not only dog obedience but search and rescue and like all kinds of high level training. And we don't go to that extent, but if you have a dog that is as big and strong as an adult male human, you have to have them be well behaved to be able to take them out in public, to be able to have them in your house and not destroy things. So we put a ton of time and effort into them as a puppy so that they are well behaved. So I was today, right now, we're training him with sit and stay and like walking 70, 100 yards away and giving him commands from that far and making him do it. And so he was distracted by a bird, but was still listening intently. And it's a good time to train him. And then people are pretty impressed, especially because for those that don't know, he's an English Mastiff. He's a puppy. He's not quite a year old and he's about 175 pounds. And when you can take a dog, lately what I've been doing is I walk him through the neighborhood and I just let him drag his leash. Oof. And I just say, "Follow me." And he stays within 6 or 8 feet of me. And if we see somebody or a dog's coming up, I'll pick up the leash just so that I have it and people aren't bothered by it. But he's coming along pretty good. And Mastiffs don't have the reputation of being the most obedient dogs or listen. And you can see it on his face. It's not because he doesn't know. And I think that's true of most of them. It's like they're deciding if they're going to listen or not because they physically don't have to.
They don't have to listen to you.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's funny because, and you can see it in the classes. We went to class last Wednesday, and we've been having my wife handle him in the class because he listens to me much better because he views me as more of the authoritarian figure in the house and her more as his friend. So we've been having her handle, and like she'll tell him to do something and he'll look across the room at me, and it's a private call. Like we're the only people in there with the instructor.
Right.
And he'll look over at me and is like, "Am I really going to have to do this?" And, I have to sit there and not say anything and make him listen to her and whatever. But it's fun watching he has a pretty expressive face and getting him to listen just on voice commands and hand signals is a good time. And then when they're older, it's a lot of fun. If you have a dog like that you can completely control by your voice and they listen and they're good, then it's a lot of fun because you can take them out around people and trust that they're going to be good around people and animals and stuff. And it's hilarious walking him through the neighborhood. There's a short street by me that has no through traffic, so there's always kids playing in the front yard, and I've been walking him since he was a little 8-week-old puppy, so they all know him. And some of the kids, he's taller than them now.
Yeah.
And they'll come up and they'll run. There was a little boy out the other day who's like 10 or 12, and his little sister, who was probably like 3, who I hadn't seen before, was out, and the mom was in the garage. And the little boy's pet him a ton of times, and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna go pet the dog." And I see the mom look up in horror.
Yeah.
She's like, "No, no, no!" And he's like, "No, he's friendly." And he's running up, and then the 3-year-old and the mom's standing like 30 feet away, going, "Are my kids gonna be eaten?"
Yeah, because it's one of those things where it's like, if you're a parent, sure, the dog might be friendly, but it only takes a second and a half of the dog being friendly for the most expensive thing you've ever done, and probably the thing you've loved more than anything else to just disappear.
Hopefully most parents think about loving them more than the cost first, but
is that what regular parents do?
So, yeah, cool. Since being no kids, we can put it the other way.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, before we wrap up the IRL stuff, I'd like to give a special thank you to your clanmate Torino for helping Boggzy with his first resume that was non-bar related in years. I've been a bartender for a long time, and I'm about to apply for I think what they call a real people job. And Torino has been instrumental in helping me sort of cut the crap and format properly. So thank you very much, Trino, for your help, and thank you, Borla, for also doing that, because you did that as well. So
Trino's a good guy. We keep him around for a few more reasons than just Warships. He's pleasant to have around, and we have some guys with some nice skills that help each other out IRL sometimes. So I'm glad it was able to pay it forward to you guys.
Does he make good Rice Krispie treats?
You know what? If you want to see the food stuff, we have that food channel, and we'll have Officer Titan or Furge or myself making some. Actually, I have a prime brisket that is going on the Big Green Egg tonight for dinner tomorrow.
Wow. Bree keeps wanting me to make brisket, so I might sneak into your DMs and be like, dude, help me make a brisket that'll impress my girlfriend. So this is a Warships podcast. We should probably talk about World of Warships, but
yeah, we can.
Yeah, there's quite a bit. There's quite a bit to sort of discuss, and we, for those of you listening, we sort of decided, we're just gonna have a little chat about state of the game. I think we should probably start with maybe like a recap on season 12 of Clan Battles. Which was, of course, marked by being, I think the biggest thing about it was that, hey, we got a Clan Battle season with no carriers again, which I think the overall reaction to that was overwhelmingly positive. It was at tier 9, which is, as we all know, if it's not tier 10, it's not technically balanced for competitive. 9 was not quite so bad as 6, for example, but a lot happened during it, including I guess we should say, like, the first iteration of Wargaming going, we reserve the right to refuse service to any ship.
Yeah. A long time ago, and I think I've shown you, I made a list of kind of suggestions for Clan Battles, and one of the suggestions that I had was rotating CVs in and out, because the reality is, with the amount of time and effort Wargaming has put into CVs, they're going to be included in some things for the foreseeable future. And I do think varying up the tiers so that CVs are not always included is a good call.
Mm-hmm.
I think sometime in the future they could do a tier 10 season with tier 8 CVs, or a tier 8 season with tier 6 CVs, to try to make it so that CVs weren't so strong. But I also did like the idea of the limits and bans. I think it would have been nice if they had made some adjustments more than just after week 2, but overall, I do think that was a positive.
What do you think they could have adjusted after week 2?
Well, for instance, they took out the Musashi and the Georgia, which were the two overwhelmingly most used battleships by the opponents that the Kill Seal group faced. We track that data, and Musashis and Missouri or Georgias were at the top of that list. I think after the ban was in place for maybe 2 weeks, they could have taken week 5 and 6 and maybe allowed just the Musashi or just the Georgia, or vice versa, switched it. I think maybe they could have banned one of them for 2 weeks and then rotated the other one, so that people and only allow one, so people could take one Musashi, for a week or two, and then one Georgia for a week or two, and not the other. I also think it would have been nice if not just the DDs, the way they banned things or limited, I guess, the Mogador to 1, maybe make a cap of 3 DDs in a team when they're that size.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with that one specifically. I would say that overwhelmingly the top tier clans, at least in NA, and I heard the EU was the same, they ran a hodgepodge arrangement of Udaloys, Amogador, Black, Nustrashimi, even Kitakazis as well. Just because the tier 9 cruiser lineup just doesn't have anything truly capable of beating a DPM DD spam. And
yeah, we saw the last 4 or 5 weeks of the season consistently, on average, it was a 3 DD lineup, which means that for every 1 or 2 DD lineup you saw others that were 4 and 5 DDs. So I think a limit of 3 later in the season would have added some variety to the cruiser play.
I'm inclined to agree. I think the problem was mainly that the choices in cruisers when it comes to dealing with destroyers was effectively Brindisi, which can slap DDs pretty hard with SAP, Riga, which has pretty appalling DPM, not great accuracy, and not a great health pool, although it had great armor for dealing with DDs. The Kronstadt, which has an enormous HP pool, a good heal, not great armor for dealing with DDs, and terrible accuracy. And then the Donskoy, which has insane DPM, pretty decent accuracy, and can really slap DDs around. But again, the Donskoy itself, it gets overmatched by basically all the battleships. It's easy to citadel, and it doesn't have much HP, so it has a difficult time trading with destroyers anyway. There just wasn't any good cruiser that allowed good DD counterplay, and that was a shame. So I think you're right in that a 3 DD limit could have been useful. Maybe if they ever do a Tier 9 season again, that'll be something that they sort of consider. It's odd, like the desire to create diverse lineups, I feel like oftentimes results in hyper-optimized lineups with no diversity. It's like...
Yeah, and that's why I think if you put the limit on that class, then it would force some diversity. I'm sure there's some people who don't care about the diversity part. Maybe they just want to see the meta lineup and who can bash everybody else over the head with that meta lineup. But I think if you were to limit the destroyers, then there would be some more roles for the cruisers. The one thing I will say to Wargaming's credit, I would rather them see with a new thing in place like this with the limits and bans, them being conservative and cautious than going way overboard the first time.
Yeah.
Because, then if they say we're going to do the same thing next season, I don't think, or at least, and you tell me if any of the people that you talk to or anybody in your clan, I don't know if I heard anybody complain that limits and bans in general were a horrible idea.
No, I don't think I ever heard anybody complaining that that banning was not good. Maybe I heard one person, one libertarian be like, just let us do whatever we want. And I thought, well,
yeah.
No.
But, if
No.
they had come down and made it super restrictive or ruled out a bunch of ships or whatever, then next season, if they said we're doing the same thing, people might have pushed back. And right now, I think if next season, did they say anything about limits and bans? I know they announced the next season, but I don't remember if I saw anything specific about limits and bans.
I actually don't know. That's a really good question because I don't recall if there was any specific mention of it. I've heard people audibly and in writing say, well, I can't wait to see what they ban first. And it's like, well, I don't know that they're going to.
Maybe they'll limit Petros.
They might limit Petros. To be completely honest with you, maybe we can start talking about season 13 and 11 here, but I mean, as I recall from the upper level of at least the North American competitive scene, Petro spam was not really that much of an issue as the season dragged on. Yeah, I mean, the Petra was brought specifically because it was the most resilient thing against the Manfred von Richthofen, which was the new carrier at the time. It didn't burn very long. It was difficult to citadel for anything. It has a 50mm casemate, so none of the battleships overmatch it. It just did too many things too well without doing anything amazing. Sort of the way that the Stalingrad used to be, I want to say. Where it just does too many things too well. It's master of none, but it's pretty darn good. So we actually used to see at the end, we would see things like we'd see a carrier with a Thunderer, because obviously, and 2 Petros and 2 Goliaths, and then usually a Howland as well. That was, I think, the lineup that we ran for the most part last season and in the last Tier 10 season, and that was pretty solid, And the funniest thing about it was that the Goliaths and the Petros were so damage resistant to cruiser fire that most of the time we ended up just doing the opposite of what general knowledge says, and we just were like, target the Thunderer first. Like, go for the battleship. Because the battleship, the battleship burns a long time. Light it on fire, then move to something else, then light it on fire again. Just keep... Even if it was in Ohio, which was pretty tanky, Thunderer in Ohio ended up usually getting focus fired first. Because, the Goliath reprints and the Petro resists.
So here's a fun question for you. If they do the same thing with bans and limits, you think they will implement a ban on the people who whaled the FDR with all their steel, or the people who just got their shiny new Immelmann?
It's a good question. I don't know. It might be worth talking about the Immelmann for a second here, because for those of you who don't know, the Immelmann is the new Tier 10 coal restricted, or I guess for coal purchase. I'm an idiot. It's the new Tier 10 German CV that you can purchase in the armory for coal. 264,000 coal. It is based off the Manfred von Richthofen. However, it gets rid of its bombs and its rockets and replaces those with skip bombs, which have been in testing for several months and are now out on the live server. The skip bombs can, I think at their maximum, they will travel 4 kilometers before coming to a final rest. So you can actually your planes can be 4 kilometers away from what they hit, which is kind of cool. There's a lot of shenanigans you can pull with stuff like that, but and then it has torpedo bombers as its secondary air type, which the torpedo planes are actually basically Graf Zeppelin planes. Anybody who knows the sorry state of the Graf Zeppelin at the moment will go, ugh. The torpedoes are slow. Yeah, they're slow.
There's something I think could be interesting to see if it happens with the Immelmann. Because of the skip bombers and the way they work, you can do quite a bit of damage to the enemy CV early in the game. So I wonder if we're going to see some people actually go back to like the old school RTS days where, you're not going to get a one strike off and snipe the CV, but if you were in a position where your battleship was aggressive and the Immelmann went and spotted the enemy CV, and you could get a salvo or 2 off of that, and if you had any cruisers with long range that were close enough, maybe in a strike or 2, you think you'll see people going after the CV sniper? You think that'll be tying the planes up for too long at the beginning of the game and not enough chance of a payoff?
That's a good question. Our friend Oskons, he's a community contributor as well and a streamer on NA. He actually did some testing on stream. You can go to his Twitch stream and you can check out the video on demand. I think he also uploaded it to YouTube. You can watch him essentially try to CV snipe a midway with his Max Immelmann under perfect conditions where it doesn't move, it's not dropping fighters in your way. Yeah, so under optimized conditions, how quickly could he kill it? And barring the fact that it's a little RNG dependent because you're relying on fires to do the real damage, it looked legitimate. You can, because the Immelmann's skip bombers can toss the bombs from 4 kilometers away, you can actually engage and do damage to an enemy CV without the patrol fighters latching onto you. They can't get close enough to you to actually engage your planes, which means that you can basically get 3 drops off, 2 or 3 drops, which if you trigger the damage control consumable on the first run, it lasts for about a minute plus. I think it's like a minute 15 or a minute 30 is the damage control. And then it's down for like 3 minutes. And during that time is when you just light fires over and over again and you burn it down. It's legit.
It'll be, it'll be something people play with, I think. I don't know if it'll be successful long term. I think a lot of the key, if you can have success or not, is if you could bring some of your surface ships to bear fast enough as well.
Yeah, and that'll be, boats like if Yamato becomes, Yamato or Shikishima might legitimately be meta just to help CV snipe. If you get an Immelmann that's constantly shooting or constantly skip bombing a CV, and you've got a Shiki or a Yamato that can fire 30 kilometers if it wants to, with the right setup accurately, the CV is going to have to be dodging the bombs. And if it's not dodging the bomb, if it's dodging the bombs, it's going to eventually turn itself
Turning
broadside.
and showing side, yeah.
So that could be a thing. You could probably do the same thing with an FDR just because
the planes don't die.
Yeah, exactly. Holy crap. I think one of my cats just did something ridiculous and it knocked something over in my room. Scared the shit out of me. Bree believes in ghosts, by the way. My girlfriend, who some of you know from my stream, Bree, she believes in ghosts. So now when I hear something move in the house, I'm like, nah. Nah.
She's in your head.
She's in my head. So that could be a thing we see. I still don't know if that's a good use of your plane's time, but
yeah, because that's going to be the catch. If you don't do it successfully, or if you lose the first squadron at some point without completing the kill, securing the kill, then it's like, okay, so I spent several minutes doing that. Do I go back for it, or those planes needed somewhere else? And really, as we all know, a huge part of what the CV does in clan battles is spotting, and you're not going to be able to do that spotting if you're busy at the back of the map with the CV.
Yep, it's sort of an all or nothing approach of if you go for the CV, you got to kill it. You can't stop because otherwise all that time was wasted, and that's just HP you took off the CV for no real gain. Right. So we'll see for sure. And if they do a limitation or a ban, I honestly don't know. I don't think Kleber. Someone asked me if Kleber spam was going to be a thing again, and I said I don't. I think the CV inclusion essentially killed Kleber spam. So I don't really imagine. Plus, I mean, boats like, if we did see Kleber spam, then all of a sudden boats like Moskva might be more appealing. Ships with long range, high velocity, accurate HE shellfire.
Yeah, on the seasons where there is a CV, the CV becomes kind of a de facto destroyer limiter, right?
Yeah.
So we just talked about how at season 9, maybe 3 DDs would be a good cap. With a CV season at season 10, you probably don't need it because the CV is going to make most of those comps really difficult to manage.
Yeah, I think that's the artificial. It's the artificial, or maybe the organic DD limiter is the CV. Not that I'm suggesting CVs in competitive are good. It's all just before you get your pitchforks out. Let's just be clear on that. But I'm inclined to say that this will look very similar to Season 11. The one caveat is that Season 11 had the added functionality of like 50% of the matches had a cyclone that reduced spotting range to 14. And I haven't heard any speculation on whether that's going to continue or not.
I have not seen it. I'm not a big fan of that, mostly because you generally are planning your comp out, and you would have a different comp if you knew there was a cyclone versus there not being a cyclone. And the RNG factor, I was not a huge fan of. One of the things, and I don't think Wargaming ever released any numbers or even gave us any specific direction about it. I could be wrong, but we saw a direct correlation between where we were ranked at the time as far as what league and the amount of storms we got. So if you're playing down at Squall and Gale, early in the season, or if you were in a clan that was in Gale or Squall, you did not see nearly the amount of cyclones as you saw at Storm, and then there was even more at Typhoon and Hurricane.
That's interesting.
Yes, we kept track of that. It was absolutely higher.
That might be worth an inquiry. Yeah, I might I might ask about that because that's interesting.
Yeah, and I don't know which team it was based off of, or if it was an average of the two teams, because obviously you're facing teams, sometimes they're in different leagues, but there was a direct increase at the rank of what league you were in versus the percentage of games with cyclones.
Yeah, that is interesting. Well, I mean, yeah, that's worth an inquiry into actual wargaming. They might be able to provide some insight on that. Speaking of cyclones and accuracy and range, so Deadeye's going away.
Shocking.
I know. I actually don't recall if you and I if was the announcement about Deadeye being removed, was that after or before our last podcast?
The official announcement was, I believe, after our last podcast, when we had Mr. Conway on, he talked about them collecting some data and totally reworking it. So I think we all knew it was coming. I think we both agree that the Swift and Silent skill they're putting in place of Deadeye at the next patch is a Band-Aid.
It's got to be a placeholder.
Yeah. There's got to be something different they're going to do with that. Let me ask you first of all: do you think Swift and Silence would be a good 4-point skill for higher tier battleships?
No. There's like 1 or 2 tier 10 battleships I can think of that might make use of it well, but even then, like, I'd rather have the trio of the heal skill. I can't remember what it's called anymore. The heal skill, concealment, and fire prevention. Like, those 3 to me are so much more useful than 8%, 10% speed boost when you're not you're a battleship. You're supposed to be spotted.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. You're talking about emergency repair expert was the heal skill, correct? The one that increases your damage control and gives you another heal.
Remember when they split Superintendent in half and turned it into a 3-point skill and a 4-point skill? God damn it.
I totally agree with you, because I've heard some people going, "Oh man, can you imagine the Georgia, going 95 knots or whatever it'll be?"
Well, that's one that would be pretty fun with it on, to be completely honest.
How often are you not going to be spotted in, the amount of CVs that are in the game, and you're firing your guns, like the combination of those times? There's going to be the outlier game where, in a Burgoyne, you get way off on the side and you can fly down the 1 or 10 line or something and pop up on somebody. But in general, that 4 points would be a very costly price to pay for those games where it was actually useful.
I completely agree. In fact, what I've been asking for is, what I'd really like to see is, I want the CV skill tree has essentially 1 tier 4 skill for secondaries. It increases the range, increases the reload, or increases the fire rate. Just give it that. Like, for Christ's sake, just just give secondary battleships a single 4-point skill that makes secondaries viable. Stop spreading it out over, 3 different, a 2, a 3, and a 4. You have to put in at least 7 skill points to make secondaries viable, including, and that doesn't even include the modules that you have to do to make it viable. Just make 1 goddamn skill that says, "Hey, I'm a brawler now."
So you're saying, like, improved secondary battery aiming and close quarters combat, put those into 1 skill, and then maybe
yes.
Yeah, I mean, secondary battleships, really, they are a meme more than anything. There's not, and there isn't a way to build them to be effective, I think, in most roles. No. So you're saying create a way to actually make them meaningful?
Yeah, because the real problem with secondary battleships is that, at least right now after the Commander rework, they were not really viable before. They were a meme, and they were fun. Like, Kurfürst is fun.
Massachusetts or something.
Yeah, Massachusetts. Georgia is actually still a great... It's not so much anymore, but before the Commander rework, like, it was legitimately a good... You could do it as this odd hybrid, still have 11.3 kilometer secondaries that were highly accurate, and fired really quickly. And
beginning of last Clan Battle season, the way I was playing my Georgia was kind of a hybrid, and it helped with the amount of DD spam coming after you. At least they had to think about it.
Yep. Suddenly it's not a free kill. You've got really accurate main guns. There's only 6 of them, sure, but they're very accurate, and they fire quickly. And you have these cool secondaries that they really do. They put damage on things like Mogadors or what have you, and they light fires on larger ships.
Between the heal, the speed, and like a hybrid secondary build, the Georgia was a good battleship for the DD spam.
Yeah, absolutely. And the problem is that, like, right now, battleships the skill tree is 100% geared towards a battleship that sits at range, doesn't move close, and just spams. It's perfectly set up for something that functions like a Thunderer, which is probably why Thunderers are so prevalent, and probably why they're generating so much friction and starting to see nerfs.
Oh, you didn't hear they fixed Thunder?
They did. They fixed it by reducing it to 23 km, which, I'll be honest, that's a step in the right direction.
It's a step in the right direction.
The real issue is probably, I mean, if we're being honest, it probably needs to be one of two things to begin to fix Thunderer, and it's either fix the accuracy, nerf the accuracy a little bit, nerf the fire chance, or even the rudder shift. Yeah,
yeah,
or rate
rudder
of fire.
shift. Yeah.
Yeah.
One or two of those would have been meaningful. Yeah.
The fact that it has enormous HE pen, high accuracy, good rudder shift, it's got that British high pen and high damage for its HE shells, and every single volley is a fire or two. It's just so good. It does exactly what a battleship should do to make best use of its range and accuracy and hitting power. So, you get, like, it takes easily 7 to 10 skill points to make a battleship into a secondary battleship, which is already worse than something like, any battleship is good as long as it has concealment. It doesn't even need concealment. So it's frustrating to me for sure, and I'm sure that anybody who listens to this podcast has heard me rant about secondaries before, but it's frustrating. Swift and Silence is dead on arrival, in my opinion. A few people might take it. That doesn't mean it's good.
There was a way to get Deadeye out of the way quickly so that people would stop complaining, and so that I think as time went on, the impact from Deadeye has decreased a little in randoms.
Mm-hmm.
When it first came out, there was a plethora of battleships hanging out in the back. Now, I think there are fewer than there were when it first came out, but pulling that is just a way to put a Band-Aid on that and then give Wargaming time to figure out what they really want to do.
Yeah. So I think your assessment is correct. I also believe that it's a Band-Aid and that it's not going to last. As I have a lot of ships now, and as I've been looking through my captain skills, I'm noticing a pattern, which is that my captain skills for my battleships tend to look exactly like they did pre-captain rework.
Yep.
I almost always take concealment. I almost always take the repair party boost that increases the number of heals you have. The, Superintendent 2.0 basically. I still take Deadeye until it goes away. And when Deadeye goes away, I'll just take fire prevention, because it's sort of a toss-up between fire prevention and the heal. And if it's something like a Kerr First or Republic, something that really likes to burn, I'll take the fire prevention sometimes. Republic,
most of mine are the same as you just described. Concealment, emergency repair expert, and Deadeye. And when Deadeye goes away, I'll change that to fire prevention expert until something else pops up.
And then for your tier 3 skills, you take adrenaline rush and basics of survivability. Fewer, shorter fires and more damage. It's like, great. Rinse and repeat.
And part of the idea that we were told was behind this rework was making a variety of builds. I think it just was a way to make us grind 2 more points. That's the reality of it.
I think it was an arbitrary mechanism to, it was an arbitrary economic mechanism to get some of the commander XP that's floating around in people's accounts out of their accounts.
Well, it worked for me because I had something like 65 or 70 19-point captains and a couple million or 3-4 million elite commander XP basically at all the time. And I could, anytime a new ship line came out, I could put 14-point captains on the ships in the tech tree on the way up and a 19-point on the tier 10 right away.
Right.
And now I had to selectively choose which ones I put at 21 points, and I have a few 100,000 elite commander XP that I'm sitting on, and I'm using it much more judiciously.
Right. I mean, that's just the truth. It's a little frustrating as well when, it's 500 gold or 300,000 commander experience to respec a 21-point captain. That's a lot.
Yeah, that's costly.
That's a lot. I honestly, I don't feel great about that.
We used to get a lot more free respecs because you used to get one at the beginning and end of clan battles. And then when CVs
Oh, yeah,
were in
that's
clan
right.
battles, they said, "Oh, you're running into the same stuff, so you don't have to." But then, mysteriously, when there's non-CV seasons or CV seasons, we still don't get the respecs.
Yeah, I think part of that is just because the AA skills are now a little more. The AA skills are a little more integrated into the other skills. But even then, I mean, I don't know, what AA skill would you take anyway?
Well, and you mentioned our mutual friend Torino. One of the things Torino has said to me over and over again is Wargaming would make themselves look a lot better if every now and then they made us feel like we got away with something.
That's true.
And that's kind of how the captain, right? Like, it used to be Christmas crates. You kind of got away with something if you bought a pack or two of the big Christmas crates.
You got
and
away
that's
with a
kind of gone
Makarov.
away. Yeah, now you got a Makarov. And then there were certain times where the respecs were a thing. Like hey, I'll play one. You had to play one clan battles game, so there was a bar of entry that was pretty low. But hey, we get free respecs, and then at the end of the season, we get free respecs. Like, I understand that it would draw away some nominal amount of revenue that people spend on respecs and on grinding elite commander XP, but if there was an event that they gave us every now and then, something like that, I do think they would have more people defending them and more people. I have buddies that I've played this game with for a long time that are no longer playing because they're fed up with that side of things, just everything being a little more expensive. And I'm talking guys, who spent a decent amount of money on this game in the past and would like to play it, and they just kind of got fed up. And I think sometimes giving something away for free ends up making you money, in the long run. And you come from a background in the service industry, right? Like, you give away a free drink, like, that person's coming back.
Yes, a big part of being a good bartender, in my experience, has been you establish a relationship with the client or the guest. Sorry, we say guest now. You establish a relationship that's sort of built off of, even if it's as cynical as, I just want you to come back so you continue to tip me, because that's how I make my money. And there's a certain amount of how should I put this without sounding too much like a monster? There's a certain amount of, cynically I would say, delusion. Optimistically, I would say there's a certain game that is played, and I would say this probably is present in any reciprocal, continual client-provider relationship, where you come to a bar because a bar is a tiny step towards fantasy and the unknown, right? Alcohol makes you dumber. It also makes you generally less neurotic and less afraid. Right?
I get more awesome, but go ahead.
Fair enough. I mean, generally speaking, it's a little step into the unknown when you have a drink, because you sort of loosen up a little bit. You also get a little less alert, and you get a little less afraid in general. That means, essentially, when you choose to drink, you're choosing to invite a little bit of danger into your life. That's, I've been a bartender for 12 years. That's a huge reason why people, hey, we're going to go get drinks tonight. Ooh, I don't know what's going to happen. It's like, okay. But one of the things is that the bartender is sort of like I almost said like the ferry manager, and then it sounded like fairy godmother, but like the person rowing the boat for you. It's like, hey, I'll guide you in your attempt to. I'll be your initial guide in your evening. I'm gonna tell you, hey, I think this kind of drink is gonna be the easiest for you, and it's sort of like someone extending their hand, saying, yeah, come on, you never been here before? I'll show you the ropes, and that's like a little bit of a fantasy in a way. That might be looking too far into it, but as with any optimized job skill, you sort of figure that out.
I'll tell you, being on the other side, like, as somebody who has traveled a massive amount for work and in the last 15 years and spent a lot of time in restaurants and bars on the road, and my travel has often been repeatedly to the same areas, so I start frequenting the places that I enjoy, and I feel as a customer that you're valued and that there's good value in what you're getting. And that doesn't just come down to what the food or the drink is. It's
Right.
at least from my perspective, it's the service and the experience, right? So if everything else is the same, the bartenders and servers that are friendly and personable and make you feel like a person are the ones where, hey, I'm going to go back there because so-and-so is really nice. And, hey, we might only chat for a few minutes, but it's enjoyable. And they seem like a nice guy or nice girl, whatever. In game, if you always feel that it's very black and white, I have to give this money for this, and that's what I'm getting. And it's very transactional, and there's no, hey, I feel kind of good because of this or that.
Yeah.
I feel kind of good because this time of year, I know at the anniversary event, I'm going to be able to get some crates at a really good deal. And I know the perceived value of what I'm getting exceeds what I'm paying for it. And they kind of know that too, but they're giving it to me this time.
Right.
Like, that's a good feeling that you get and may bring you back. And I specifically know people who have spent hundreds or probably actually thousands on this game.
It gets up there.
That aren't here now because they don't have that feeling anymore.
Yeah, it's an odd. I don't know what.
How do you quantify that?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we'll find somebody who knows how to quantify that. My cat is chewing on my headphone cable. Bert, buddy, knock it off, okay? It's legitimately pulling my headphones off my head.
You want me to send Waylon over there?
Jesus Christ! Your dog weighs 10 pounds more than I do. I'll tell a little story about that because there's an odd relationship between someone who's providing a service or, you might even say that something like a video game is, in a way, it's almost like a drug. I don't want to freak anybody out by saying that, but
dopamine.
There's the dopamine hit that you get in your brain when the sound. Synpax is the one who pointed it out to me. He said, "Did you ever notice how when you sink an aircraft carrier, it makes the most dynamic dinging sound?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Well, you know the ding sound that pops up when you sink a ship, right?" And I said, "Yeah, it's the same sound that you all listening may have noticed that when we transition segments, we do hard cuts and we transition segments. There's a little. It's the sound of a cruiser being sunk." I didn't even notice that the sound is different depending on what you sink. Destroying a destroyer is the lightest, least dynamic sound that pops up, and destroying an aircraft carrier is like hitting the jackpot. I had never even noticed that subtle thing. He goes, "Yeah, because shooty pixel boat casino game, when you hit the jackpot, you get the best sound, and it just subtly conditions you to want that more, and that's fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with that." But there's an odd thing, and one of the things that was odd was I used to be a bartender in Beverly Hills, and I'd get celebrities that came in pretty frequently, and sometimes I wouldn't recognize them. Overall, I would say celebrities liked nothing more than to be anonymous. To not be recognized was frequently something that a celebrity would appreciate the most. So the most perfect example of that I can give you guys is probably back in 2015, I think. It was the middle of the afternoon, and I worked at the bar at this restaurant, and this young, this handsome guy comes in. He's probably in his late 20s, maybe early 30s. Sits down and has lunch, and he wants to chat a little bit. And he said, "Oh, I'm just stopping in from New York." And I said, "Oh, are you here for work?" He says, "Yeah." I said, "Do you mind if I ask what you do?" He says, "No, not at all. I'm an actor." And I said, "Oh, that's cool." I said, "Are you in something I might know?" And he says, "Well, do you like the Marvel movies?" And I said, "Honestly, not really." Honestly, not really. He goes, "Oh, okay. Well, I'm in one that's coming out now." I said, "Okay. Well, which one is it?" He says, "It's Captain America and the Winter Soldier." And I said, "Oh, that's cool." I said, "Who do you play?" He says, "Well, I play a guy named Bucky." I said, "Oh, that's cool." I said, "My name's Joey." And he goes, "Oh, my name is Seb." I said, "Cool. Well, nice to meet you." And we chatted a little bit about whatever for the next 20, 30 minutes, and he left me a nice tip. He's a very nice guy. And then I think he came in maybe one or two other times.
"Oh, that Bucky."
And it's Sebastian Stan, who's
right.
He's a great actor. He's had a very successful career, and he was very kind and polite to me. But he really seemed to appreciate just, hey, this guy has no idea who I am. So funny thing about that, maybe that doesn't tie into what we were talking about quite as much, but sometimes a customer will appreciate an odd thing more so than just, I really liked it when Wargaming, maybe months ago, maybe 2020, did that thing where they actually encouraged the community to pitch them ideas for fun Easter eggs to put in the game. Do you remember that?
I don't know if I saw that or not.
It might be a bit of a deep dive, but they had this cool thing where they actually recommended, they said, hey, we'd like you to send us your ideas for fun little things to put in the game that are essentially cosmetic. And then they revealed and showcased the top 10, and then I think they picked 2. One of my clanmates at the time actually was in the top 10, which was fun, but the one I liked the most was on, I think it was Northern Waters. It was maybe, I forget which map.
With the no battleship sign.
Well, there was that, that was a fun little Easter egg, but that wasn't because of them. They actually had suggested a tiny modeled version of one of the maps from World of Tanks, sitting on top of an island in the map, so that if you flew over it with aircraft, or if you zoomed out the proper way, you could actually see a little tiny working animated version of one of the World of Tanks maps on top of this island in the game. And it's totally stupid. It does nothing. It's just aesthetic. And I loved it. I was like, that's great. It's just such a silly little thing to sort of take your mind out of the fact that you're running a numbers simulation over and over again every time you play. And there were a couple other little things like that, but just community input and fun things that the community can sort of go, oh, I do that, or I have an idea and I'd like to share it. I think that sort of stuff is great, and I really wish they'd do more of it. Dota 2 has this fun thing where people can literally upload their own skins to the server. They can create their own skins for weapons, for entire characters, and then you can buy them, and the game and the creator profit share from that. I don't know how that would work for Warships.
Do they screen what the designs are?
Do they screen what the designs are?
Because I cannot imagine how many ways people would find to draw dicks on
the ammo. How many dicks can we get onto this Georgia? I'm sure that they have a screening process, but yeah, I mean,
no, but I think what we're talking about though is just we're talking about pixel boats, and there is time and money and energy put into developing everything, and I think that has to be recognized. And I think we've called out before, the art department is really good. They do a really good job for Warships. But just a few things, like I said, Torino kind of mentioned to me a while back, feel like we're getting away with something. One or two lucrative events, one a quarter or a couple a year. And especially if they weren't ones we could expect, something pops up and, hey, in May we're doing this, and it just pops up a week or two in advance. And I think that would earn them a lot of goodwill. And I do think it would retain some people. And it's hard to, like we've talked before, it's so hard to quantify why people leave the game, who actually spends money, what, they know what money is spent and where it's spent, but the people who leave after being in this game for 2, 3, 4 years after spending a lot of money, there's not an exit survey, right?
Right.
Why did you leave? Was it because real life kicked in and you had a bunch of crazy stuff, time for gaming? Was it because you were, something happened where your clan fell apart and you no longer play competitive? Was it you got fed up with things, or the grinds, or whatever?
Was it because Flamu told you to? Right.
But anyway, that's just something I think Wargaming would do well to listen to.
Yeah.
I think we've kind of talked about it for enough time that people are tired of it.
Probably, yeah. But no one would ever get tired of listening to us talk.
But we don't have a boss, as you pointed out, so we can talk about whatever we want.
It's true. We're our own bosses. Well, you have a boss. It's a 170-pound, monster, but
he's snoring over here, so I think he's content.
I mean, quite frankly, that was all I really had to talk about outside of the Dutch cruiser line. We have an entire new nation coming to the game of Dutch cruisers, which it's kind of exciting to me. They're true heavy cruisers, and they're almost battle cruiser like in some of their attributes, I want to say. And you and I before the pod were actually discussing, hey, could they actually even do a battle cruiser line? And yeah, I mean, they could do a British battle cruiser line with the HMS Repulse or Renown, which I've been clamoring for 2 years now. They could make a hood refit if they wanted to. There's a whole bunch of things that they could do, considering that some of their designs come off of paper napkins. Might as well take some real battle cruisers that actually existed or were actually designed and throw them in there. But I don't know enough about the Dutch cruisers, and I couldn't find the articles about them.
Yeah, I don't think there's a ton of information out there on them. I know I was watching part of the stream when they released them. And so I'm all for more content. And I do think Wargaming's done a good job of continuing to put content out there. I think a lot of us who've been around a long time would like some more balanced things. And that's, I think we just have to understand reality is going to be, we're going to see a priority on new content over balancing existing content.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you. And this might be the time to start wrapping up, but that's really something for them to think about. And I hope they listen to that sort of stuff, because games are allowed to be fun, and there's a lot with war history games, especially. There's so much to draw on, there's such a rich history of destruction and, machines out there to draw from. So I hope that they are still willing to be creative in that regard. As for the next pod and some of the upcoming guests, you and I have talked about a variety of things. One being getting someone on who's played, 2,000 plus battles in a tier 2 ship or a tier 3 ship or a tier 1 ship or something like that. I'd love to do that. We just got to find somebody and then manage to get a hold of them.
Yeah, an interesting thing that I've found, I think I've talked about this before. I often in the morning when I'm drinking my coffee play one Mikasa game.
Yeah.
Until Wargaming changes, which apparently they're going to change the way the flags work for getting achievements, and I'm not a big fan of that. I think it's going against what we just talked about, but it's a good way to farm flags. Sometimes you can get 150, 160 flags in one match. And one of the things that I found, I run Matchmaking Monitor. I run into the same guys. Like I play one game a day at most, one game a day. And I bet you there are people that I've seen 3 or 4 times a week out of those 7 games a week, that I've seen them 3 or 4 times a week for the last 2 months. And guys who have thousands and thousands of games. And some of them, I'm just curious, like I would love to talk to them. Like, is this something you're doing? And like 15, 20 years ago, did you play Solitaire and Minesweeper and you're just killing some time? Like, for real, is it because it's low stress? Is it? And some of them are really good in their ships. Some of them are not. Some of them have never progressed over tier 3 or 4. And I'm like, what why do you have 27,000 games in Warships and they're all like tier 2, 3 or all but a couple hundred of them are?
Let's say this. If you are listening and you know somebody, you like have a personal relationship with somebody who has thousands of battles in sort of an odd ship, like a tier 1, 2, or 3, send them our way. Like, hop onto my stream. I stream 3 times a week at the moment. Like, hop onto my stream and say, hey, I think I have somebody, and then direct me to him. We'd love to interview him and just sort of talk about, like, what do you get out of this? What is this? What is this about? Do you have eyeballs in a jar in your house, or what?
Yeah, or be like Serpent 13 from YOLO W, who's like, are you the Borla from the podcast?
Right.
And did you know Boggzy is an actor? Like hit us up when you see us in game and say, hey,
I got somebody for you.
I got something interesting for the podcast. I love ideas from people.
Yeah, do our jobs for us. I mean, I want that. So
I mean, that's how I got this job, wasn't it? I mean, we kind of started talking because I was a big fan of the podcast.
Hell yeah, brother. Well, okay, we'll probably go now. I'm in the future. We're gonna bring on a couple more clans as well. I'd like to We talked about the possibility of getting RNG, who they're stalwart in the competitive community and full of nice people, and we just haven't really gotten around to them yet. One of these days I'll get 007 because Eagle Lance is an absolute mensch. Eagle Lance is a delightful man. So we'll see if I can snag him as well and talk about 007. But also, we talked about the idea of doing like a YouTuber roundtable where we could get, bring
content creators. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that'd be really fun to bring back Brain, bring back DeNarmo, bring Jake from State Farm and ask him to behave. And I mean, maybe Euro if he's around. We could try and grab them. I'd also really like to get DrakenFL as well. He's a CC now. For those of you who don't know who DrakenFL is, for years now he's produced these really wonderful, like sort of narrated histories of specific ship classes, battles. He's got a delightful British voice. He's one of the armchair admirals for the Wargaming, for the World of Warships official, I guess I should call it official program, where he and the Mighty Jingles sit down with, I think, Tucky, maybe another Wargaming employee, and they just talk. They just talk about war history and battles and naval battles and stuff. Love to get him on. So we'll, not to mention Mighty Jingles, of course. He's the diamond, the one that I'm going for. Maybe we can get him on episode 100. Who knows?
And I think if somebody has an idea or they have a clan that's interesting, or if there's a cool story to tell, then both of us are easy to find on Discord. Yeah,
hit us up on Discord.
And give us an idea.
On the stream, in game, just reach out to us, please. So, without further ado, I think that's it for me. Anything else you wanted to chat about, Borla?
No, I will send you some pictures of that brisket for Bree.
Would you please?
I keep getting pushed by my buddy Floopy in KSC to start an OnlyFans for my meat.
I was just about to make a joke and say, do me a favor, send Bree a message and let her know that you sent some delicious pictures of your meat to Boggzy. But an OnlyFans for the brisket's not a bad idea, man. Things are getting weird in the world, so make that money where you can. All right,
man.
Yeah,
enjoy your weekend.
You too. Take care. We'll probably be back next week with another clan, or maybe if we can organize a roundtable for the YouTubers, that'd be great too. So other than that, thank you, everybody. I'll include down below a link to that awesome video of the kid totally running a promo on Hulk Hogan, because I think it'll put a smile on your face. So without further ado, this has been Get to Know World of Warships. We'll see you next time.